Welcome to Comics Con, San Diego Comics Con. And for me, this is my first journey to the Comic Con. It's something I've always wanted to do. And so I was quite honored to be asked to talk to these gentlemen, William Evans and Omar Holmon, who are the Black Nerds, as we all know, those of us who follow them on Twitter. And they, right, you can tell by the gestures that Omar is making. They have an incredible book coming out in the fall called Black Nerd Problems, and it is hilarious. It is hilarious. And as I was telling these gentlemen minutes before we started, it is the book on Black nerds that you didn't know that you needed. And it will leave you in stitches, and it will also cause you all sorts of very profound cogitations, folks. So without further ado, I want to jump right into this conversation about Black nerddom, as well as all things pop culture and comics related. But first of all, before we go to the most natural question about why you embarked on this particular project, I got to get your real-time reaction to the news that Marvel announced today. And you tell me whether you think it's just a lot of hype and nonsense and, just wave it away. But Marvel announced that in September, they're beginning a series, The Death of Doctor Strange, in which they will definitely kill the character off. Now, is this just some death of Superman shit or some death of Captain America shit, and that they're going to bring him back in 2 years? And, what does this mean? And is this a setup for Brother Voodoo or Dr. Voodoo to become the new magician, sorcerer supreme?
Right. I mean, what's the Game of Thrones quote? What is dead may never die, right? Like, right. I mean, comic book death is like the seasons, man. They come and they go, right? And usually they're good for galvanizing a moment and usually making either a hero we know step up or introducing a new hero in their stead. And we've kind of seen Marvel in particular, to good and to me, good effect. They've done this to kind of inject more diversity into their lineup, right? Like that's how we got Riri Williams, so to speak, yep. Was like the death of Tony Stark kind of a thing. And there's a lot of examples for that. They don't always have to die to reintroduce, but it's a natural way of doing it. I don't know, man. I mean, Strange is cool. I like Strange. Yeah. I don't think we've seen the end of Stephen Strange, but it'll introduce something, and it would be kind of cool to just see a different character kind of take up that particular sorcerer space, right? Mm-hmm. Because we know Strange ain't gonna be gone forever. So, but I defer to Omar usually on deep comic book lore because the man breathes it. So
he's hugging his pillow there. I see.
First, like Terry Crews, I will hit it all really, but the status quo only lasts for like about 2 years, 3 years. Like as you said, sometimes like the most 6. I mean. Look, Barry Allen was dead for like 22 years. They brought him back. That man it was like a rule that Bucky stays dead, Barry stays dead. They brought Bucky back. DC said, no, get him out. Get him out. So to see this, now, I prefer when a death is permanent, but it will not be permanent with Strange. But the good thing about this is that you get to see a different character step up into the role. We saw it happen when Strange kind of got banned as the Sorcerer Supreme, and Brother Voodoo for a time being became the new Supreme. I think that was in the New Avengers run way back when. So whether it's Brother Voodoo or someone else, it's a nice thing to see. And then Strange will come back, and then Strange will have the apprentice for
right.
That will be the thing.
He'll be the mentor for a second, and then it's like, oh, but you got to do your own thing. You have to make your own path, right?
And it can be awkward sometimes, like when the Falcon was Captain America for a couple of years, and then Cap came back, and it was like, okay, shields, gotta go, brother.
Yeah.
You know,
I hope you had fun. I hope you had fun
yeah,
with the Shield, because
exactly. Hand
Yeah.
it over. Yeah, I just wanted to get your reaction to that because, you know, it felt to me like a particularly cynical sort of move, given that all the attention that popular culture is getting, especially comics characters are getting these days. A lot of folks might see a press release like that as something pretty major. In fact, I saw it on a news stream before I went to one of the fan sites to see how it was being discussed. So I just wanted to find out what the Black nerds had to say about this. Get that hot take while it was really hot.
It's real hot, off the press.
Right. So let's get the 411 on how, you know, Black Nerd Problems came about, this book, because it's you know I'm not shitting around. This is really a lot of really profound thinking going on in these pages, and very moving, oddly enough. I didn't expect to be so moved by it.
I think, you know, the book itself, it just came out of what we were producing on the site. And just to give the very brief origin of the site is, you know, Omar and I have been friends for a long time. We came up in the poetry performance slam community together, though in very different locations, right?
But you weren't in the same city at all.
No. Omar was in Jersey and New York. I've been in Columbus, Ohio for the duration. So we met at one of these events that was a national event, and then we became friends, right? And so we shared this nerdom and everything, and I kind of came to him and like, man, we should kind of like put together like a site where we have like a lot of different Black nerds like us that like get in and discuss things, because I think we had a growing frustration with not only like the lack of diversity or representation in a lot of the stuff that we liked, right? A lot of the like comics or movies and things like that. I think we just had a growing frustration with how it was covered, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we kind of
in the popular, at least in the comic books press, you know, how it was covered that way.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Right? Like there would be, you know, if there was a new character and the new character was Black, where that legacy character originally been white or something like that, you had that reaction, you had the fan reaction, and then you would have like these mostly predominantly white employed writers writing about it. And there just was a void, right? And we weren't the first, you know, site that focused on being a diverse voice coming into it, but we came in with a wave, right, of sites that were doing that. And so one of the things is that we really focused on was, this is our authentic voice, man. Like, you know, I it's gonna sound like we weren't doing this for white folks. we just weren't. We were just like, if y'all like our stuff, y'all gonna come along and read our stuff. But we're not doing this to placate, to make other people feel comfortable. It's gonna be our authentic voice. And so through years of doing that, you know, we kind of just adopted that to when we started writing this book. It was gonna be the same philosophy.
Right. You want to add to that, Omar, at all?
Ain't nobody doing it like us, man. This man trying to be all humble over here. Nah, you weren't doing recaps like this. You weren't doing reviews like this. Oh, a 10 out of 10. Nah, we'll say 10 cakes out of 10. I'll change the whole game. Man, over here being humble over here. Nah. What?
Okay, bro.
I have nothing for that.
Let me tell you guys, the chapter just had me on the floor because it was so right. New fictional Black characters deferred. It was absolutely brilliant because, you know, I'm ashamed to say, I had never noticed it quite the way you guys framed it. And it really had me, it checked me right at the door. And I was just like going, shit. Do I really have to read these guys and retroactively be outraged?
I'm going to go back in time. I'm going to tell 2009 me Why were you taking this? Like, what? You should have been pissed, fam.
I'm serious. I was completely
correct use of the DeLorean right there, right? Like,
there you go. That's I mean, it obviously was there. A lot of people were thinking that. For some reason, I wasn't. When you guys are writing these pieces, are you thinking this is such a truth bomb that even the folks who are chronically slow are going to get it? I see you shaking your head, Omar.
Nah. For me, because it's the way my wife tells it. She's like, hey, I really respect how sometimes you just write for you, and like maybe only like 3 people will share that, but you're proud of it because you did it for you. So it's something that I notice. Sometimes like, well, maybe if I point out this pattern, maybe others will notice. But at the heart, sometimes like, well, it's something I think is true or I feel very strongly about, so I'm going to write it, and hopefully other people feel it as well. It's rare where it's like, for me at least, it's rare where I'm like, I know I'm writing something like, oh, this is going to blow them all. I don't know if I can curse here now, but it's going to blow folks' minds right quick. It's always a crapshoot, but I'm like, well, this is how I feel. Hopefully, I don't sound crazy. I know I'm not crazy, but we'll put it out there regardless.
Well, I can tell you, like, the examples you gave all resonated with me and made me, like, embarrassed I hadn't thought about it. Like a character would show up, basically as a secondary character or third tier even, or basically the Black friend, and then disappear for 13 years, and then come back just to get killed off. Right. And, and I guess maybe that's the difference between being really attentive to the subculture and those who just sort of read it casually, because you see things on the spectrum that, those of us who are just reading it because we just sort of enjoy it. I've been reading comics since 1967. I'm an old coot. But I haven't been reading them as attentively as you guys obviously do. And so it's amazing to see a lot of these issues put into perspective in a way that sort of has almost a socio-political resonance to it. And I think that that's so necessary given the overwhelming whiteness of fandom and all of the sort of like resentments that white fandom has about the changes that are going on, and the fact that comics and popular culture are becoming more multiracial, multicultural. And so these questions become much more germane. And I think that Black Nerds, your site, your book, I think it really elevates these questions to the place where they really need to be, so that we can really finally get at some nitty-gritty issues that aren't going to be covered in a comics journal, let's say. So I want to just thank you guys for that. And even when it comes to, established characters like Batman, chill with the slander, let Batman cook. The single most revealing essay I've read on Batman in years. Tell me about that. Did that start off as an argument between you guys?
I mean, sort of, because Omar does not mess with Batman because of a very, very specific memory of one moment in a comic where he doesn't like from Batman. But like this, so it just became popular to just dunk on Batman, right? Like, right. Especially on Twitter and everything. It's just he's just an easy target because he doesn't have powers, and so it just became very popular to dunk on him. And like, I'm a big Batman fan. Like, I like the fact that like he's a genius that trained himself up and has done this and XYZ, right? And so one of the reasons I wanted to write that, and one of the reasons that like I think a misconception about people that hear about Black Nerd Problems but haven't read us yet or whatever, is that by nature of our name and by nature of who we are, that the only things we're going to talk about is like Black characters, right? Or specific to Black issues or Black topics that exist in nerdom. And it's just like, actually it's the other way around. We are nerds that are Black that talk about nerddom, right? And so like, there might be Black characters that get more of my attention because I have an affinity there, but we actually like all of nerdom, right? And we have thoughts on all of it. And the Batman thing came about because I'm a fan of Batman, and just like it's so easy for people to dunk on him, right? And like people are very sick of Batman, but there's a reason, whether we like it or not, there's a reason that
he's in every book.
Every two properties that DC puts out, one of them has to do with Batman, right? And there's like an overwhelmingly popularity to it, but there's also a ton of unique ways to write him, and a lot of writers that have done incredible jobs with him, right? And so I just wanted to break it down because I still think Batman has all this potential as a character, even though he's been written a billion times. And I just wanted to push back against the Batman is terrible noise, right?
So Omar, tell me, is there a comic book character or a subject or a pop culture subject that you and William are just irreconcilable on? You know, that it's like you're just never gonna see eye to eye on this no matter what. Like for me, like you guys both love anime, and I can't get with it, bro. I can't get with anime, man.
But it took me a minute.
Right one. You gotta find the right one is all. I mean, I respect Batman because I like Nightwing. I like that, and Batman raised Nightwing to be better than he was because he actually works with teamwork and knows how to communicate his feelings and whatnot.
Right.
You know, a well-rounded human being. But you do what you got to do to punch people in the face in Gotham City. Like, I get it. I don't. I mean, I will not be moved on the fact that I think all right. I said on Twitter, I'll say it here too. I think Daredevil's the nicest with the hands in marble. I understand that Shang-Chi is the master of Kung Fu, but they ain't been writing him like that for a good minute. I'm just saying, I grew up on Daredevil punching people in the mouth with finesse. I'm just saying that. The movie might change things if it's not a fair shake. Daredevil got more shine than Shang-Chi. That's the problem.
He's had a billion properties, right?
Exactly.
Like,
so to me, the propaganda got to me, but that boy can fight. That boy can fight. When he took a Muay Thai roast on the show, he took on Iron Fist in the college.
Fair enough.
Tony's got me wondering though, Omar. Is Batman our biggest disagreement? What's our biggest disagreement? I don't know that we have like.
I'm a pretty easygoing person until you mentioned Batman. I'm like, I'm tired. Listen, I respect the man. However, because he does not communicate, it caused the death of Ted Kord back in Infinite Crisis.
Okay. See,
Tony, you see, it's a very specific wound, right? This is what I got to deal with. We can't have a conversation about Batman because of one storyline that was written like almost 2 decades ago, right?
Yeah, that is an old storyline, bro.
What I'm dealing with.
Am I wrong?
It's not everything is canon, even though it was once canon, though. You know, maybe it didn't happen.
Man could have spoke up. He was rude. Rude.
Well, one of my best friends, I mean, the biggest argument that we have is Galactus. He thinks that Galactus shouldn't be white, and we both agree on that. but he says Galactus should be black, and he says maybe in the new Marvel universe they'll bring Galactus back black. I said, how is that us overcoming if Galactus is?
How does that get us to the promised land? Like, there's also like there could be an in between. Like, I feel like we do this in nerdom too, right? Where so a big thing, and we all do it, but I feel like I'm building some resistance to it. Is like there's always a petition for a character to be portrayed a certain way, especially from like the marginalized nerd community, right? Like it's like, oh, he better be black, he better be Asian, he better be this, and like obviously there's certain moments where that makes a lot of sense. Like Iron Fist probably should have been Asian,
yeah, right? Iron Fist. Oh my god,
right? But like, there's always like a big push for that, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know that I want them being black, yo. Yeah. Like, have you like their character design is awesome. But like maybe they were like a terrible person. I don't know that we need to welcome them into the brotherhood like that, right? Mm-hmm. Like let white people keep some things.
Yeah,
y'all keep the terribleness. Don't keep the terribles.
You know who my father always felt that the Silver Surfer was like coated black. That's he rocked with that man. But North Red, he rocked with that man for some reason.
Yo, and then didn't Lawrence Fishburne do the voice of him in the movie? Yeah. And it's like so your father was vindicated.
I did not know
I knew he was black. Morpheus in the house. I knew it.
That was Lawrence Fishburne. I did not know that. I didn't realize that, or I forgot it because the whole movie has been shut out of my mind.
Yeah. That's real. That's very real. Don't just hold on to that fact, but don't try to remember nothing else about that movie. Nothing, actually, any Fantastic Four movie. I think about it.
Yeah. Probably the most aesthetically important chapter in the book that I've read so far is the chapter, on judging Black art. I think that and the Black Card chapter were two of, were really, really elegant, really sort of stunning. Let's talk a little bit about Black art, and it's just wanting to support. And you use, for an example, I always have a hard time pronouncing her name. Taraji, the star.
Taraji P. Henson.
Right.
Taraji P. Henson.
She was in a terrible movie, and you want to root for it. Like Issa Rae says, you want to vote for everything Black. That means you want to support everything Black. But sometimes you gotta admit when something is just terrible. Sure. Aesthetically, it just doesn't deliver. And I wonder if, in this renaissance of representation that we're sort of experiencing in popular culture right now, do you find yourself, and you sort of more or less answer the question in the book, but I just want you guys to talk about it a little bit. Do you find yourself giving a little more rope or a little more latitude to the Black artist or the Black property because you want it to have the same track record of mediocrity as sort of like a white property, and how necessary is that going to be, and how long do we have to sort of pretend that something is worth it even if it isn't?
I don't think there's for me, we don't we don't tell like it is from the jump. But
that's right.
In doing so, we do a disclaimer that, all right, this was not great, but that's okay. We can't just say this is great so that we can't say this is great in the hopes of getting another one. We got to admit that this is mediocre, and that's fine. We deserve to have mediocre things as well, and that's okay. The fear that if it's mediocre, that means someone will not. No other Black director, actor, all Black cast will get this chance maybe for another like 20, 30 years. So it has to be normalized that there's like Black. When we think mediocrity, we think white. All right, so there's Black mediocrity, whatever. It is okay. You can still do this again, try this again with a different set of people or groups.
Yeah. I look at it as to answer your question very directly, do you feel like, do I feel like I give more rope when there's like a Black artist involved? And the answer is yes, I do, like initially at least, right? Like, because I think it's a very tangible fear that if this thing doesn't blow up, explode, whatever, go viral, if this thing isn't successful as a commercial success, whatever that means for it to stay on the air or whatever, then the opportunities will dwindle. And I think it's a real tangible fear because we've had examples of it in the past, right?
Exactly.
And so there is and this is, we're talking about Black art, but this definitely exists for all martial arts communities. You see what's going on with Kim's Convenience Store and that whole saga right now too, right? There's this tightrope of making art that is your vision, that is not compromised by outside forces. And when I say outside forces, I mean, the adherence of like a white audience. So there's this balance of making art that is you're true to, but making art that can sustain and still be viable to continue to make that art, right? And I think that's like a really, really tough balance to maintain and not particularly fair, but that's where we're at. And like, I think a great example that can be somewhat applicable to this. So I think Donald Glover just said this, had a comment about TV show runners are kind of scared to take chances because they're scared of being canceled. And I think a lot of people took it as like a cancel culture thing, but he was literally talking about like your show being canceled off the air, right? And I think that is true broadly, but I think it is definitely true for like marginalized creators, right? Because you can take a chance, you can make something that is like unapologetically of your culture as unapologetically Black. And then you have to think about the numbers. How many people are going to watch that? How many people are going to invest in that? You know, like it's such a cliche almost now, but like, this is the thing that Chappelle was scared of with Chappelle's show. Like, it really was. Like, people called him crazy. And Chappelle has done a lot of other shit that's not great since then. Like, let's be clear. Right. But, like, people thought he was crazy. Oh, he went to live in a tent in Africa because he couldn't handle, like, making $50 million. And he was like, yo, it wasn't my jokes no more. And I didn't know who I was making laugh anymore. And, like, now, I mean, if you didn't have all the other stuff possibly, like, that was prophetic, right? Like, and so I think this is a thing that, like, Black artists deal with all the time. And as Omar said at the top, like, there's also this like exceptional Negro, exceptional Black experience thing that we have to deal with too, where everything we put out has to be amazing. Yeah. And like, you know, there's a ton of really, really bad movies that are nothing but white folks that come out every year, and those folks will get another movie next summer.
And I must say, you guys actually do keep it honest. You know, you do keep it 100, as they say. You guys don't try to flatter folks. I mean, I noticed I think it was in that same essay, you talked about how underwhelmed you were by Lovecraft Country, a series that I am completely and utterly disgusted by.
I didn't know which way that was going, Tony. I didn't know which way it was going. You were like, you were kind of ambivalent about Lovecraft Country, and I was like, oh, he loved it. Oh man, it's gonna be awkward.
No.
Will wrote that. That was all Will that wrote that.
That was like Will wrote that.
I ain't say
it. I'm just, but you know, I love the fact that you guys do keep it real. You do keep it 100, and you know, you're fearless in that way. And I wonder if you ever envisioned yourselves one day becoming, you know, not just critics and essayists about these aspects of culture, but I mean creators of it. I mean, I could very easily see you guys, you know, especially you, Omar, given your encyclopedic knowledge of things that, you know, storylines and story arcs that the company's going back decades, rewriting for Marvel, like Ta-Nehisi, you know. I remember doing a panel with Ta-Nehisi Coates a few years ago, talking about the crew and the Black people, and his hopes and dreams for the series. And, you know, and believe me, he does not have the background you guys have. And I wonder if you see yourself in the scheme of things, especially after Black Nerd Problems comes out, writing for Marvel, because God knows, and I'll say it, I'll go on the record, I just don't think they have, other than Donnie Cates on Thor and a couple titles here and there, they don't have a lot of really good writers.
Yeah. I know, let me say this real quick. I think one of the things that Coates did, and I think, Omar, you wrote about this specifically, I don't even know if this essay made it into the book, but like...
The final essay, the final essay is about T'Challa.
And about Chadwick. I think, so, but I know Omar at one point wrote about, not only did Coates bring the crew back, like in Marvel,
it is in there.
But Coates put on folks like other Black writers for comics, right? And so now we're starting to see more of that, right? You have Eve Ewing, right? You have Stephanie Williams just like started writing for Marvel, is writing everything for Marvel, right? You have a few people that are there now and are starting to, they're getting bigger books and they're getting more responsibilities because they've proven themselves on some books. And so I think it's happening more now. And I mean, I can speak for my own ambitions. Like, yo, I have a Black Batman story on the back burner. Like it's novel, right? Like, so we definitely have these ambitions because we started out as writers, like before we were critics. And so, yeah, I think it helps to have stories in your head when you're able to critique other stories, right? And it's not necessarily like you have to do a thing to know a thing, but I think it helps give, at least for me, helps me give empathy to the process.
Yeah.
Knowing what is in the writer's control, knowing what's not, and knowing what kind of risks they may have taken to get there. But also being like, oh, okay, you made a very deliberate choice here, right? Like, and that's not the choice I would have made. So I do think we still have those ambitions of creators as ourselves, right?
Yeah. I mean, if worse came to worse, I mean, you guys are certainly clever enough and have a deep enough background that you could, I mean, you wouldn't have to do Marvel, DC. I mean, you wouldn't have to do any of the binary industry places. I mean, you could just do independently owned and controlled
Image, call us. Image, call us.
Dog is still on hiatus. What's up?
BlackNerdProblems@gmail.com. Hit us up.
Well, you guys remember the company that DC spun off, 30 years ago?
Vertigo, was it? Vertigo? Wildstorm?
Not Vertigo, the black company.
Oh, you talking about Milestone?
Milestone, I'm sorry.
Milestone? Yeah,
completely blanked on the name. I even went to New York and interviewed those guys. And they're small, tiny little studio. I was always disappointed with now those characters are coming back. I mean, they're bringing back a lot of those Static Shock and all those guys. But I mean, that was like a moment in history when it seemed that like the black creator, in the early 90s was like coming into, his own, in that case, it was just guys. And then it went away. But I hope that we see a renaissance of that kind of talent again. And you've already spoken to it. You've talked about the folks who are now at Marvel doing some interesting things. I'm not particularly familiar with those projects that they're working on, but I want to see something bigger. I mean, I just think there's just so much talent out there that just has never really been able to take the floor before.
Right. What was wild, Tony, if I can interject real quick, is that, I don't think there has been a single bigger loss to comics and comic properties than Dwayne McDuffie passing.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right?
What a brilliant guy he was.
I mean, brilliant and just commanding and the vision. And it's funny, I'm going to make
and tall as shit.
And dude.
Like, hey.
I'm going to make a weird comparison here, but I think it holds up in that, like, I remember when Tiger Woods was like a 19-year-old phenom, and like everybody was like, this is going to open the door for more black people to get into golf, more marginalized folks to get into golf because he's kicking down this door. And that did not happen, right? That didn't happen for a variety of reasons, but because like golf is like a notoriously gatekept kind of community to get into. It's expensive, it's a connection-based, that kind of a thing. And comics has a similar feel to it, right? Like when McDuffie was here, you definitely had the sense that like this was, and he did, like this was going to be a gateway, right? Yeah. And when McDuffie passed, it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen in that same way. And like the Milestone saga is pretty well documented all over the place in terms of like the ups and downs and the resurgence. But especially on the DC side, it just didn't happen like that. It just didn't happen like that. And it's the McDuffie's legacy is enduring, but it is a shame. Yeah, I guess is the only way I could put it, that it didn't really kick the doors down like we hoped it would.
Yeah. Amen. Oh man, did we go over the time?
What is time? We in the Speed Force, baby. We going.
You probably the most There is a note from her in there. I'm still going to ask the question real quickly. The most recurring line in one form or another throughout the book that I've read so far is Black nerds is a subculture of a subculture.
Yeah.
Deeply profound. And that's probably a good point to end on. What do you guys mean by that exactly? Because it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum, as you said.
I was performing somewhere, and then it came to me on stage as I said it. But like, all right, you got because we're gonna get to the spectrum of nerd stuff right here. So like nerds, all right, it's a subculture, right? Like not a lot of people are into this in the beginning. Like not a lot of people are into these things, comic books, media, how it's consumed, whatever. So it's a subgroup that's not a mainstream thing. Now within this subgroup, it's usually how it will be depicted is like usually all white. So that means we have Black nerds. So that's a subculture to this subculture.
Right.
And now that's kind of like gone away. To me, obviously we can also say like, oh, you're a Black nerd. I'm also just a nerd, man. It's also, you know what I mean? Because nerd is really no longer like, to me, it's transformed into like, you're a fan.
It's no longer pejorative. I mean, and in fact, you laid it out why it isn't. You know, and in fact, there's even the seed of like a messianic promise for Black nerdoms, like because you're outsiders to the outsiders. So in a sense, you can talk about everything, you know, critically, and you know, there seems to be, you know, a dynamic in Black nerd discourse that is going to save popular culture. I mean, it's going to save it, you know, and it's going to be folks like you, critics and creators, you know, who are going to save all of these, you know, sour white guys still living in their basements. You know,
I think Tony just said the word. I think we good. I think we done here. I think we done. Book can sell 2 copies. We already got the message out, right?
No, this is gonna sell more than 2 copies, my friend. At least I can guarantee it here in Pittsburgh.
I know. Our publisher was like, please don't ever say that again. Don't say that. I used to say this to Omar when we were starting out Black Nerd Problems, period, is that like, you know, you can ask for a seat at the table. You can ask if that seat is taken at the table. And I think we just like built our own seat and brought that bastard to the table ourselves, right? And I think when we're talking about like the subculture of the subculture, I think one is eroding like as being its own thing faster than the other. I think it is more popular to be a nerd still. I think that part of it, in terms of it like nerdom being separate from pop culture, I think that line is starting to erode more. I think that line is eroding quicker than, oh, okay, there are actually Black people that are into these things too. I think that's lagging a little behind the mainstream. And like, there's a lot of things that can counter into that. Like, anime is more mainstream than it ever was. Like, you know, like Netflix has a big part to do with that, right? Like, you know, comic books are more mainstream than they ever were, and that's primarily because of the movies, right? And so I think there are things that are catalysts for these that make it feel like it's more accessible to everyone, but I still think we're lagging behind on, oh, like, wait, you're Black and you like this too? It's like, yeah, dude, I like this. I like this my whole life, right? And so I think about Black Nerd Problems, and you said a very flattering thing to us early, Tony, in that this was the Black nerd book that you didn't know you need. And it's like, I'm hoping that a lot of people have that perspective because we always been here, right? Because we just been here for a minute, right? And I really do feel with your commentary on popular culture and like what can be done to stave off like the modernization of popular culture, I do feel like it would eat itself, right? At some point, you have the same people talking about the same stuff. Is going to eat itself whole. And I'm really hoping that us and folks like us can help expand how we think about these things.
Oh, this is I think, you know, Black Nerd Problems, no bullshit, is, first of all, it's just fantastically written. It's funny. It's profound. and it's a quick read. I'm 5 chapters in already, and it went like that. And I think that it gives us a framework to talk about culture in a way that's coherent in terms of culture itself, and it's just really fine. So I just want to congratulate you guys on this, and I hope that if anything comes of this conversation is okay. Now see, they missed all the good stuff. Too late.
I want to say thank you, Tony, for the questions and the attentiveness to it. It's man, you never know, man. We put out this book and we like it. We think people are gonna like it. But you put out something like this, and in which we're talking about Batman and anime and Nerd is a Spectrum and the Black Card, right? And we're doing we got an essay in here talking about like Pusha T and like drug talk, right? Like I was just like, you never know.
Pusha T comes up a lot in your writing.
Pusha T is a moment. He's a moment. He's like so no, I appreciate it because we're confident in it and we're confident in what we put out there, but like we're unique for a reason. We don't know who else is gonna be like great, or like I have no idea what the hell I just read, and so your words are much appreciated.
And I can't remember what chapter I read it in. It was a discussion about Jonathan Hickman's writings, and that was actually very helpful to me because I'm always scratching. Oh yeah, it was about Prince Namor versus T'Challa. Oh my God, that was a brilliant ass chapter. Oh my God, that was like such great shit, man. And
can I tell you, when Omar and I read that, it was just like we have to write about this right now. Right now.
Because Hickman, he's like one of those writers that just makes me go like, what the fuck did I just read here? Yeah. And I think that you guys really started digging at that, and I was like, that's worth the price of the book right there.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah. That's some good shit, guys.
We're gonna tie 5% to Hickman for that.
There you go. So I better let you guys go. And you're in Akron, you said, right?
I was born in Akron, but I'm in Columbus.
Oh, you're in Columbus. Oh, you're not that far from me, man.
No, so I am not.
Yeah. When I'm cruising in your direction, man, I'm gonna have to drop you a line and take your lunch.
Please do.
Omar, you're out there in the wilderness, man. Where are you?
I'm in Brooklyn, New York now.
Oh, the concrete jungle.
Yeah.
Well, man. I get to New York a lot, brother. So expect an email from me.
That's what's up.
Saying let's meet up in the city or something. But man, I really enjoyed this. And I hope you guys can edit this into something usable.
I think in Rachel we trust. No pressure, Rachel. No pressure. I think it was good, man. It was a good talk. It was good talking with you for sure.
Oh man, this is a real pleasure. An honor, gentlemen.
Thank you, Tony.